Yeah, I've been busy. But I did find in the bottom of the horse tank, the horse water tank, uh, where I usually keep my beer, and I found I had a high life lurking. So that will cleanse my palate from that pap stuff. The label's a little loose. No, it's not a bad temperature it stays at in that water tank. Okay, I think I see things are heating up in the Balkans. I think Kosovo and Serbia, it's going to be a squabble. But I think Blinken was just there, and I think he convinced them, we kind of got our hands full right now, give us a month. So I don't think all hell will break loose there for a month. But then it will, and that'll get ugly. That always gets ugly. We've had experience with that area. But we've got a very large base in Kosovo. And it's funny because it's one of these odd NATO things that we like to do where it's beyond inspection. Like, we can do torture and all kinds of stuff there, and these human rights inspectors aren't allowed in there. So we use it for that. It's probably the whole reason behind the thing. But we're going to stir up some trouble there. So, because it's funny, I mean, Kosovo isn't really recognized as a country by most countries, but we kind of invented it, and it's handy for us. But especially for these little sneaky operations. But now we're going to start bugging the Serbs. So technically it's really part of Serbia. But we don't like that because Serbia is, they aren't condemning Russia. So that naturally makes them a great enemy to NATO and the EU. So they're going to stir up Kosovo. But it don't take a lot. There'll be a little ethnic cleansing going on again. That's a tough area. Things that happen there don't make a lot of sense. They're too involved. You can't just look at it and say, "Oh, that's the problem." It's all a problem. Especially when we get involved. Well, like I say, I think we've got a 30-day grace period on that. And in the meantime, of course, we'll be building up crap there, and the Serbs will be building up crap, and they'll be ready to go at it. But it'll be triggered by Kosovo. But in theory, Blinken has got them held off for 30 days. So we got that little bit of a breather. But in the meantime, Pelosi is still trying to pull a dragon tail. We you know, in theory, she isn't going there. It's not on her itinerary, though that's the only reason she's over there, is to go to Taiwan. These other places are just distractions, you know, and then it's funny because they're talking like, you know, oh, it wasn't her intention to go there. She thought she'd just stop by, you know. Yeah. You know, they're coming up with all these methods, you know, like my understanding, now I had heard this once, I haven't heard more about this, but my understanding was that there is a decoy plane involved in this too. You know, you got broomstick 1 and evidently there is a broomstick 2 that they have a scheme for. You know, like now, in theory, she'll be there tomorrow. That's when her reservations are. But the funny thing is they've got reservations in this 5-star Hyatt, but then they also have reservations in some smaller, out-of-the-way kind of thing. You know, so there's some scheme afoot, you know, and then they're saying, you know, they're not out saying, oh, she's going to go there. But they are saying she could have, I think I inhaled a mosquito. She could have mechanical problems with the airplane, which might be where this second airplane comes in. Or they might be needing fuel that would make an emergency stop in Taiwan. Well, if you've got reservations in 2 different hotels, how much of an emergency stop can this be? You know, nobody falls for this stuff, including the Chinese who said, okay, if she has a problem, we'll be on hand, and we will be glad to escort you to a base in mainland China that has better facilities to fix your problems. I don't think she wants to go to mainland China. But they would be glad to escort her there. So we'll see what happens there. You know, the whole thing is foolish. I mean, there's no need for, she's not going to accomplish anything. In fact, what this is going to do, whether she goes there or not, just the idea of this, you know, Taiwan doesn't want her to come, China doesn't want her to come, the White House doesn't want her to go to China, nobody wants this except some, you know, warmongers in the Pentagon. But even they're looking at this saying, oh God, we ain't ready for this, you know. But she's bound and determined to go. But she's going to try to do it, you know, in some sneaky way. And now she's bound and determined because they told her she can't come. She's bound and determined to do it to prove how tough she is, you know. But she's going to try to do it in some sneaky way, like I say, with the low on fuel or airplane mechanical problems. You know, some excuse. And then the whole idea of, if this is true that they have a decoy plane, what's going to happen, even if she manages to pull it off, land there, shake some hands with some revolutionaries, get on the plane and go again, and manages to pull this off without getting shot down, the people of Taiwan are going to take a beating for this. which is why they don't want her there. I mean, they try to exist in this kind of, they got a little autonomy, you know, they've got their own government, but they still technically are part of China. I know one time, a few years back, one of my sisters was in Taiwan for a while teaching English. And they permitted this, the Chinese did, but the Chinese would come and inspect once in a while. And when they did, they would give them warning ahead of time. And then they would have to clear the teachers out, the teachers from like the U.S. that were there. They would move them into a different room. So these Chinese inspectors could do their inspection, then they would leave, then the teachers could come back out. But you don't want to flaunt that sort of thing. You know, that was the idea. We'll permit it, but don't flaunt it. But then Pelosi wants to go in there and start flaunting this crap. But even, like I say, if he does pull this off, and nobody gets killed, though, like I say, she can go anytime. But the people in Taiwan are going to take a beating for it. There will be repercussions on this. That they even permitted her to land, if she manages to land, or sneak in some way. You know, because that could be why the dual reservations, it might be, you know, they're going to land someplace else, and she'll be, you know, she likes to do things in a sneaky way. But that isn't diplomacy. That's just being sneaky, you know. But she's not a diplomat. She's a sneak. So she's going to try to pull something on them, and they are not going to appreciate it. You know, if this was actually above board, you know, like Gingrich at one time had went over when he was Speaker, but it was done in a civilized, not sneaky sort of way. But even then, they required, I think he had to fly, he was in China, he had to fly to Japan, from Japan to Taiwan. You know, they weren't going to let him go right from China to Taiwan. But in this, she is not representing this country. Like I say, she does not have the backing of the White House on this. There is no reason for her to be there. But you can't tell her that. She wants to prove something. Or stir up a lot of trouble. But like I say, Taiwan is going to take the beating for it. Ah, well. But it's funny, you know, like this deal with Kosovo. You know, I mean, like, Russia's going to be helping the Serbs. You know, they've got a certain commitment there. But we got our hands full. And then you get something like that going too. But we'll see, like I say, in theory, Pelosi will be there tomorrow, though, you know, like I say, sneaky that she is. She might be flying her broomstick in now. You know, she is a bitter, hateful, but certainly not a diplomat. Like I say, there's no reason for her to be there at all. Unless there's some, you know, skullduggery going on with, you know, Taiwan makes all the computer chips, and of course she's heavily invested in that, and so this could be more of a personal thing, but we're paying for it. I think she's just trying to appear tough. Big mistake. Yeah, well. Well, like I say, I think we got a little grace period here before this kicks off in Kosovo, but you know that's been a mess for a long time. Uh, Hard to make sense of it. There's too many little ins and outs going on there. I know that was a brother-in-law that was stationed over there in the last escapade. I don't think he could make sense of it either. You don't know who's on whose side. You know, there isn't really sides. It's just a free-for-all. And, of course, nothing but corruption again. But we thrive on that. So, there'll be hell to pay there again. I don't know. You'd think people would learn some way of getting along, but, well, and usually, you know, like I say, countries usually can get along until a third party comes in. We're always that third party. Us or the EU or NATO, you know, which is all kind of the same now. But somebody's got to come in and stir them up. So that's what we're going to do there. Again. You know, it's funny when they say, you know, like they're having trouble recruiting people into the military. Well, when they're picking fights all over the world, you know, there's only a certain type of person that you're going to get that's interested in that. You know, it isn't defending this country. They got a lot of nerve to call it Department of Defense. Well, like when they say NATO is a defensive organization. Yeah. You try telling that to, like, even the Serbs that were bombed the hell out of before by NATO. And the only good that's going to come out of it, I think it's going to, well, it's going to, I mean, we're already, you know, we like to think we're the superpower, but we're losing a lot in these kind of maneuvers. But I think it's going to kill NATO. I think it's going to kill the EU. I mean, when this is all said and done, there's going to be anything left of them, which is good. The world will be a safer place without the defensive organizations. If there's a world left. But man, to have one crazy old woman going over there for no good reason. I mean, there's nothing that can be accomplished. Only bad can come of this. Like I say, the people in Taiwan, they consider themselves, there's a little radical group, but the majority of the people in Taiwan consider them part of China. The Chinese think Taiwan belongs to them. It's one country, but for some reason we've got this, you know, keep egging them radicals on, pouring in the weapons. And we're doing the same thing in Kosovo. So, won't end well. Nothing we get involved in ends well for anybody, including us. But I think this whole deal of kind of holding off for 30 days is to kind of give them a chance to wind down this debacle in Ukraine, because that ain't going nowhere. You know, so they're going to kind of back off on that and start going the other direction, getting the Balkans where they really have fun. But Ukraine jumped on the bandwagon there and immediately said, "Oh, we support Kosovo." that's that's nice. But I would imagine actually even a lot of weapons that we've been sending over to Ukraine have been getting over to Kosovo anyway. But, that stuff will turn up. Well, I got a lot of, I've been working on motorcycle parts all day, cleaning up. I did a lot of glass beading today. And now I got to clean, make sure I get all the glass beads out of parts, and then paint them, and do some more assembly. So still putting that one motor together that'll go in my XT, the original motor. But I got the rings today for 2 other motors, so I can go with them too. So I had a big crate of parts I was glass beading today, which is exhausting after a while. But it's a good way of getting parts cleaned up. But I can go with that now and get them painted, side covers and whatnot. If I can get them painted tonight and let them dry overnight, and I can assemble that tomorrow morning. Though I do have 2 heads that I have to grind the valves on. And I was always going to show some of that operation, so that might happen. For people who aren't familiar with grinding valves, or valve seats. But I'm set up to do that now. But I got one XT head and one SR head, the 2J2 head, the big valve head, which I want to have on hand for when I take my SR apart in case I want to swap that out. Well, I do want to swap it out. So I should have that on hand, ready to go. But one of the set of rings I got was for that. But it's an endless list of little mechanical problems on various vehicles that I have to work on. I'm just glad I know how to do that stuff. It'd be a real bugger if you didn't have the equipment and didn't have the ability. Well, you couldn't afford to keep that stuff running. But I'm set up to handle it, and I've got the experience with it, so not a big thing, but it takes a lot of time. And somebody asked about the Volkswagen. Well, one of these days, if I get caught up on the other stuff, one of these days I'll go with that Volkswagen again. Like I said, I've got the motor done. I just want to, there's certain body panels that I want to put on before I put the motor in. Like that go right around the motor, but I have to weld them in. Which means I have to pull, I'm sitting on a generator here, and this is my big generator that I use to run the welder. So I either have to bring the Volkswagen over here, or bring this generator over to the Volkswagen. But then I can put the motor in. Once I get them panels welded in place, I can drop that motor in. Then the thing will be portable, so I can move it to where I need it. Well, I see I'm about out of beer. Just about out of time. Because this thing will run 30 minutes. That's it. You've got to wrap her up. And by doing it this way, I can actually see I'm at 25 minutes and 14 seconds. So she'll shut down in about 4 minutes. But it can take forever to upload. I know I did, one day I did a video, and it took 15 hours to upload it. Well, when you're talking about like current events, 15 hours could be a long time. So things change rather rapidly. But, you know, most of that stuff, you know, like by the time this gets uploaded, Pelosi could be dead. That's a nice thought. I would like to be informed of that. The world doesn't need her. And that Blinken, man, I tell you, he is a troublemaking guy. That guy really causes a lot of problems. They really got to get rid of him some way. But, you know, like I say, he was stirring up this Kosovo deal. But in theory, he's the one who told him, give us a month. Then we'll be ready to really wind up on this. But he's trying to convince him to hold off for a month. It's funny when you can, you know, schedule your conflicts like that. That's handy when you can. But we're spread so thin now. And their theory is, oh, it'll open up a second front with Russia. Well, no, it won't. You know, Russia will supply weapons, and they might do a little missile targeting in support of the Serbs, but I don't think you see actual Russians on the ground there. But I think they'll back them. Yeah, because Serbia's kind of had their back. And when the EU gets around to raising hell in Hungary, which they probably will, that's probably on the schedule, I think Russia will have their back. We got nobody's back. We don't even have our own back. We just like causing mischief. Well, call her a day. I can clean up parts.